All right, back on the morning drive on this Wednesday morning, 241-1059. I'm Chris Beckham, joined by Dr. Steve Smith, also Fred Weatherington, Troy Davis in the studio with us from the Lowndes County Board of Education. You know, I've heard some people say, well, I'm going to show up at that board meeting Monday night, and I'm going to see what's going on. Hey, I wish we could show up at every board meeting. We'd love to have a crowd. Or how about a PTO meeting or something like that? My whole point of this is let's have more people engaged in public education. If you're a parent, certainly. But if you're just a community member, it is a big deal, and we want people to know exactly what's going on, which is the reason that we asked Dr. Smith and Troy and Fred to be here with us this morning, because we do want people to be more engaged and to have the right information out there. And Troy, I'll ask you, and education can sometimes be a complicated thing because not everybody goes to school for 6 or 8 years like our teachers do to acquire what they've got and to know about what's going on in education. So sometimes it can be difficult to understand exactly, but these things are being done for a reason. So
they are, Chris, and I guess I'll tell you something that years and years ago, when you first were able to put your screensaver up on your computer and you could put in a word, the marquee. I put children's first on mine, and I've carried that now through another system, and I brought it over here, and all my computers have that. And that's not to say that's to remind me every day what I'm doing. When that computer goes into safe mode, that screensaver mode, that tells me that, hey, this is what we're about. We're about the children. I think the last 2 weeks it has been difficult. Dr. Smith alluded to that. It has been difficult, but it's also, we're talking about children, and we're talking about how to improve their opportunities for the future. And so. And I think that's good. I think that's what we need to be doing.
Right.
It is a complex business. Education is a complex business. Teaching is the most difficult job that I've ever had, and I've had a lot of jobs, including Fred cropping tobacco. But I will tell you that teaching is a difficult job. You're molding a child who is going to be taking care of us in the future.
Right.
So it's not easy.
And what I hope that is kind of learned from this entire episode, and Fred, I'll ask you about this, because unlike Steve and Troy, you're not an educator, but you're on the Board of Education. So certainly you're at an elected position. I know you go back to these guys a lot and say, okay, let's look at what we're talking about here. And that's what we want the public to do. If they come and they live in your district, we want them to approach you to say, okay, exactly what's going on here.
Absolutely. And I've had a lot of calls and a lot of questions this past couple of weeks, and that's good. And I think, I believe everybody that's called me, I feel like, or that I've run into in Hayhire or around town, I believe when I've got finished explaining exactly what our policy is and the reasons behind our policy, I hadn't run into anybody. Like I said, I said this at the press conference, and I'll say it here. I think America believes in second chances, and really, when you boil our policy down, it's about a second chance. It's not about a third, fourth, fifth, sixth. I mean, that would be up to the individual teacher. But yes, back to your point. I encourage parents to start with their teacher, you know what I'm saying, because that teacher, I think Dr. Smith said it earlier in our interview, knows more about what's going on. But if there's any questions, policy-wise or whatever, I think our school board members are always, we like to hear, feedback actually helps us do our job, because, sometimes, and we've made mistakes in this. We said that at the press conference and tried to apologize because in an attempt to try to clarify and try to put some consistency throughout the schools and the system, in the memos that went out, we didn't get that done. We ended up causing more confusion, and so so I said it at the press conference, and I'll say it here. Some of this was friendly fire, a self-inflicted wound or whatever. But what we're doing and what we're all about and what our intent is, I believe, is sound, solid educational policy that's going on across the country, especially with learning-focused school philosophy, which is what we're about. And like I said, we're trying to take a kid from pre-K to 12th grade and get them to be ready to be a responsible, accountable adult. I think that's what the community expects out of us. That's what our job is, and not every kid's going to be going to college, but every kid's got some talent, right. and we've got to find where that talent, where their ability is at, and this is really what it's about. We can't give up on a kid, especially these young kids, at an early age. You just can't do it.
And I'll tell you, we had a call, to the show yesterday from an educator, as a matter of fact, who spoke highly of you as Van Thornton, who used to be in the school system here and is now up in Tift County. And he said exactly that. This is about finding what you just said, Fred, the talent in each of these students. And Dr. Smith, you've been involved in education for
actually 40 years. I've been working in a system for 37, but the 3 years that I worked with the 3M company, I called an educational accounts. Now, when you stop and think about I don't know how many years I've been in schools, one guy referred to me as a lifelong learner because I never got out of school. When I got out of school, I came back to work for a school system. So I guess when you look at it, I guess from age 5 when I entered kindergarten, I've been in school ever since.
And every single student that you've come in contact deserves the chance of the best education they can get. That's a no-brainer. Everybody will agree with that. Some get it quicker than others, and that's what this whole conversation, I think, is about. It's easy to get kind of inflame it and say, things are going on when maybe people don't know the entire situation, but it sounds like the people you've talked with personally and who've really investigated it have at some point said, oh, now I get it, now I see what you're talking about.
This is sound educational practice, and that's the basic thing you can say about it. Yesterday I was meeting with a group of teachers, and I told them that I spent a third of my career as a classroom teacher. Hey, my job then was a whole lot easier than their job today. There's so much more to teaching today. At that time we had classes divided into the high, the average, and the low, and it was a lot easier to teach. But today you've got classes where you've got the high, average, and the low in the same class, so you have to differentiate your instructional strategies to reach all the learners in that classroom, high, medium, and low, those that use auditory learning skills, those that use more visually oriented learning skills. So it is a big challenge, but teachers are better today than they've ever been.
And just like anything else, the more we learn about how kids do learn, the more we can apply that and hopefully have a better student. We're going to take one more phone call before we get out of here today. Good morning, caller. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Chris. How are you?
Good.
Yes, I'd like to ask Dr. Smith and the board is if us as parents, if we will be authorized to write in a letter to our school teachers and let our children be omitted from having these second chances. This infringes on my right as a parent, from what I'm trying to teach my kids at home.
Okay.
Absolutely not. You control the home, we control the school. The philosophy of our school is to give children a second chance. We're not going to pick and choose who gets a second chance. Everybody gets a second chance. The teacher will use their discretion as to who gets a third, fourth chance. And my suggestion to the teacher is that we use extended learning time or time before or after school if you're going to give them additional chances, because we don't want the children who mastered the skill initially, we don't want them left behind. We need to move on and progress at a normal rate.
Okay, caller?
All right.
Thank you very much. Guys, we appreciate you being here this morning, and thanks so much, and hopefully we can get back to normal and educating kids after this is all
Y'all
done.
believe a guy would ask a question like that?
Again, Dr. Steve Smith, Troy Davis, and Fred Weatherton, thank you so much for being here with us this morning, and we appreciate you taking your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chris.
We're going to take a break and come right back. More of the morning coming up right after this on News Talk 105.9. This is WVGA.